Welcome to our special Shoptalk edition of the Omni Talk Spotlight series, the series that spotlights the companies, the people, and the technologies that are shaping the future of retail, or said another way, the series that brings you tomorrow's companies today. I'm your host, Chris Walton.
And I'm Mezzenga.
And we are the founders of Omni Talk. And today's podcast is brought to you with the partnership and support of our Shoptalk sponsor, Meta. Discovery commerce matches products to people, not just any people, the people most likely to love your product. When you turn on Discovery commerce, you turn discovery into demand. Is your business ready? Find out how at meta.com/discovery commerce. Okay, folks, today we are pleased to bring you a company called Afresh that bills itself as the fresh operating system built specifically to help grocers increase sales, empower store teams, stock fresher food, and reduce waste. And joining us to fill us in on exactly what all that means is Afresh CEO and co-founder Matt Schwartz. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great. We've wanted to get you on the show for a long time. We've talked to your team a couple of times, and it's great that we're finally pulling the trigger for Shop Talk in advance of the show and sitting down with you today.
I've heard nothing but good things about the show, and I know that we have a bunch of good mutual connections and folks like James McCann of the world. So I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, Midas McCann, we call him here at Omni Talk.
That's right.
Touches turns to gold.
Oh, wow.
Well, man, I want to hear your story though, and your background. How does one get into, AI and the grocery business? Tell us your background.
For me personally, the thread that connects my story is a huge desire for impact. And it's that desire for impact that brought me to food in the first place. My belief is that food shapes the world more than any other industry. And from an environmental perspective, the amount of energy, water, and land that goes into growing and distributing our food, it's absolutely immense. And from a human health perspective, food shapes our day-to-day experience of the world and is the single largest non-genetic determinant of our longevity. And so for those reasons, I've always believed that improving our food system is the single biggest lever arm we have to improve the health of the planet and the health of people. And so it's that obsession with food that's motivated by this deep desire to have impact in my life that ultimately brought me into the food industry generally. And then the story of how I came from that interest in food to the specific set of problems and theses that we have at Afresh is a little bit of a longer story, but I'll pause there. I can get into that, but that's a little bit longer.
Please do. I'm curious because I'm curious, like when, so, if that's your passion, like when did that passion first take root, either entrepreneurially or career wise? Like where did it all start?
As a kid, I was a finicky eater. And I found that eating better was this unlock for me to become a better version of myself. And that was something I've always wanted to give back to people. And after graduating from college, I started my career at Bain in a consulting role, quickly kind of packed on a few pounds, working long hours, and kind of remembered and kind of went back to this idea of nutrition. And I started actually putting together evidence-based nutrition plans for friends and family on the side. I was really getting into the science of it. And I had an idea to start a snack food company that would be good for losing weight, but really satiating and low cost, so it would be accessible to everyone. And I wanted to do it, had no idea how to work, how to start a company or work in food. So I actually went and became, as an extern, this cool program that Bain has where you can go work at another company. I was the first employee at a company called Simple Mills, the first kind of non-intern type employee that does almond flour baking mixes. And now they've expanded into a whole bunch of other product lines, including the frosting that I formulated while I was there. So anyways, that company was amazing. And Caitlin Smith, the CEO there, she's incredible. And I got a firsthand experience just getting to see her in action and understand how to build a company. So did that. And then I did end up starting my own snack food business. It was called Stat Foods. The idea was to leverage food science to make processed food for good and not evil. We did protein bites like before protein bites were a thing. Anyways, long story short, got into Stanford at the same time. Realized I couldn't be a full-time business school student and start this company. And I also was entering a joint degree in food and environment at Stanford Earth, where I was kind of learning about the food system through a more academic lens.
Wow.
And all of that coalesced into the ideas behind Afresh, which at the highest level is there's this kind of hidden divide in the world and in the food industry that nobody really talks about, where there's kind of two kinds of food. There's processed foods,
Right.
and those are derived typically from row crops like corn, wheat, rice, soy, sugar. And then there's specialty crops like produce, but there's also then, meat, bakery, food service, deli. And bringing us all the way back to retail now, that hidden divide ends up looking like the divide between the center store, where all of the non-perishable products are, and the perimeter, which is where all of those fresh categories are. And the giant realization was, hey, fresh is the thing that everybody wants. It's what distinguishes a retailer from Amazon online. And at the same time, all of the technology that serves critical functions in retail was built for the center store.
Yeah.
That was such a weird divide, and it causes all of these massive problems on a global scale. And so we thought, hey, can we build a fresh food first technology company in the modern era, leveraging artificial intelligence and other techniques, drive efficiency in a way that would massively reduce food waste and multiply the profitability of retailers at the same time?
Yeah, because the other part of that too, that divide, is it's also the big source of profit loss for most of these grocers too, right? With the spoilage and the waste that goes into those categories, and that's not good for the environment either. But so talk to us then about like what is it specifically that your platform does?
Overall, on the highest level, when we talk about our fresh operating system, what we're talking about is this interconnected suite of solutions that's taking every core activity for the grocer and moving them out of a manual paradigm, whether that's paper and pen or Excel, and an intuition-driven paradigm where people might be making guesses to make decisions, and leveraging digital ecosystems and artificial intelligence to make decisions. That's kind of like the loftier, bigger description of our suite of products. To talk really concretely about our first product that's in market and live with our customers today, it is a store-level ordering solution for produce. So specifically what this does is it optimizes the quantity of every fruit and vegetable item in the produce department, all 100% of the department. The retailer uses Afresh, our system, to place a profit maximizing, waste minimizing order for each produce item every day that they place an order.
And so where does the AI come into the equation then within that process? I'm curious, because that's always, AI is a buzzword that gets thrown around. Like, how are you guys actually using it in that context?
AI certainly is a buzzword, and it's a little bit of a shame because at the same time there is real science out there. And our co-founder Vladimir was a PhD in AI from Stanford and now professor in AI at Cornell Tech, and we've published in the foremost conferences in the world. So a lot of people say AI, we find ourselves kind of battling it because we believe that we really have that core to our DNA, real AI, and that's what's underneath it.
Well, that's why I'm asking you, Matt, just to give you some, and give the audience some perspective too. Like, because I can remember working at Target, and being involved in the perishables inventory planning and replenishment, and them trying to design systems and whatnot that would go into it and do that. But most of those were just like basic algorithms or math on a spreadsheet, and they'd try to supplement the orders at the store level. But you guys, I imagine, have a whole nother wrinkle that you're adding to it. So yeah, I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. And if I pull up one quick second, just to kind of talk about it at a higher level, artificial intelligence is really important and fundamental to our system and very differentiated. But the broader thing that is the special sauce for us as a company is this idea of holistic system design for fresh. And when you think fresh first, it actually makes every part of your system different, not just the algorithms and the AI, but actually, what does the workflow look like? What does an integration look like? How do I maintain inventory? Do I even need to maintain perpetual inventory, which is something that retailers do? We don't actually require perpetual inventory. And so there's this giant revisitation of the entire question of how this ecosystem needs to work. And that is the real innovation that we've brought. Now, within that, AI plays very important roles and is very differentiated in that we use artificial intelligence to do better demand forecasts than anything else out there. But
Forecast,
again, going back to the differentiation, it's not just the forecast, it's also even the inventory. Actually understanding inventory position is an incredibly challenging thing to do. If you were at Target, then you know this might have been the biggest problem you're tackling, is simply asking how many bananas are in the store right now? How many salmon fillets are actually in the store right now?
Right.
Nobody knows that.
No.
And so one of the biggest innovations we've done is create a workflow that combines existing store labor, the existing people in the stores, with their existing workflows, and then using AI to predict inventory, to understand what might be in the store, to then drive a workflow that leverages the machine and the person to come together to get an approximate understanding of inventory position that's good enough to place good orders. And then the other part of that is making AI for systems that can handle the uncertainty of a not perfectly known state.
That's key, right? Yeah.
And Matt, can you drill down to that a little bit? You said it doesn't disrupt the current workflow. Like, how does the platform plug into, like, if I'm an associate, I've been working at, we'll say Target for, 6 weeks or something. How is my day-to-day changing as I'm going in and learning how to implement the Afresh platform?
For a lot of retailers, the current paradigm, it's either one of two things in produce or in fresh. They either have an intentionally manual process where they have a paper order guide, they go count inventory item by item every day, and then write it down, and then use their judgment to place an order, and then they redundantly scan it in on some machine. And then the other paradigm is that they've implemented a system that is supposed to do automated ordering or assisted ordering, but that gets close to zero adherence. And so they end up doing that same process either way. And so that's the exact workflow we piggyback on. So if you're a produce manager in a store, what you would do is receive a tablet. The Afresh iPad has the Afresh app on it. You would initially take an intelligent inventory step where we ask you to count inventory for a select number of items. And then that's guided by the AI. And then you would receive optimized order recommendation quantities for every item, which you could then review. And we actually don't want them to accept 100% of the items. This is another big design for fresh type moment, is we actually believe in the judgment in many cases of the store level associate or manager to, the berries might come in moldy, or they might have not received something that the system thought they did, or the cash register had wrung out a bunch of stuff as organic when they were conventional. And so the reality does not match what's happening in the digital world. And so in those instances, we actually do look to the store associate to use his or her judgment. And then they go through that process and hit submit on the order. And that gets routed directly to their order management system or warehouse.
Matt, I got a question for you, because I remember one of the big issues with trying to unlock the code on this was always the seasonal events, right? Either the big seasonal events like the 4th of July, Easter, whatnot, or even more problematic, maybe the local events that no one at headquarters even has the faintest idea are happening. And all of a sudden you need
10,000
20 pounds of T-bones or something, I'm making this up, but how do you guys help with that?
Yeah, the restaurant down the street runs out of T-bones and says, I need to get my T-bones from somewhere. May as well go to the grocery store. Yeah, I think this is the challenge of fresh. You're talking about, and what you're talking about is actually both inconsistency and variability in supply side. So is the fruit available right now? Or is it on a good deal right now? Am I getting a good price? And then there's also inconsistency on the demand side. Am I going to sell more of it because of this holiday? And the result of that is that historical systems that say they apply AI to the space, they might apply it to a demand forecast, but they're still in this non-fresh paradigm where Cheerios are not seasonal. You have a planogram, a schematic with a set number of facings for Cheerios, and that is unchanged for 6 months. And that means that your forecast might be different if, for whatever reason, there's a Cheerio craze on TikTok or something like that, but it's pretty constrained. If it's starting to be cherry season for the first time of the year, what week is cherry season going to start? Is it going to be a good one? Is it going to taste good this year? Are they available? What's the price at? how are they going to display it? You're going to add a secondary or tertiary display at the last minute. Is that captured anywhere digitally? So all of a sudden you're in this foundationally different domain where you need to have a much more dynamic forecast on the demand side, but you also have to be able to account for the dynamics of the supply side and the merchandising environment, which is really, really fast moving and volatile and involves a lot of judgment calls as well. And so that's where you can start to see that, hey, it's not about just having a better fresh forecast, although that's a critical part. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient. What you really need to have is holistic ecosystem that can handle the really dynamic nature of fresh food.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. There's so many more components that you have to tabulate here versus, say, the standard dry box on the grocery store shelf.
And are they already plugging into other systems then within the overall store operations? Like, are you able to plug into like a promotion system or something where, okay, I do need to set up like some kind of stand in the middle of my produce section to sell the cherries because we did get a good deal and they are going to be good. Like, how are your clients tying those together?
Yeah, this is a really great question. And it's also something that I'm really excited about on our product roadmap and sort of how this fresh operating system evolves from what started as a point solution, but is already expanding out into so much more. And right now we do take promotional data. We take all the data we can get that's available. The challenge is that all of the systems and structures that are in place are really foundationally built for non-fresh. So grocers often have nice digital schematics and order guides for non-fresh items, where there's a set planogram. But again, cherry season comes. I always end up getting obsessed with one
in these interviews, right?
Like another time I just talked about broccoli a lot. Cherries, at least I sound a little bit cooler because like cherries are yummy. Broccoli, it's like, who's this guy peddling a bunch of broccoli on people? Anyways, so yeah, with those cherries, there's not really a good existing digital system that's going to say dynamically, we got this hot buy of cherries, like we executed on buying a few extra loads because the distributor had a few extra. And so we're going to stand up a tertiary display. And oh, by the way, the holding power of the shelf is dynamically changing to this. And oh, by the way, we're going to carry 3 different varietals from these different folks right now. And we want to make all of that happen in a week and make it all happen in it, or even on the timeline of days. And so historically, what we've had to do is find ways either in the store level workflow or in other ways to figure out how to get that data in the system, or in the very worst case scenario, build a workflow where there's enough control from the store level user to use his or her judgment in cases where the system couldn't provide a recommendation. What we've now expanded to do though is actually build workflows for the corporate folks. So order guide management, merchandising management, things like this that start to enable fresh first data entry, fresh first kind of workflows, not just for the store level teams, but increasingly for corporate level folks. And so those are some of the things that are, expanding and that's some of our vision for the future to kind of build all of this ecosystem together.
So Matt, if I kind of click into that a little bit, what you said too, the other motif I'm pulling out of that is actually the companies that are using your tools, and I want to talk about who those are and any lessons you can share from that in the next question. But I take it from that part of what's happening here is this is actually giving more autonomy to the store individuals at the local level to make better decisions and own their business more as the managers of, say, let's go back to your favorite analogy now, cherries, like the managers of the cherry department. Of course, there's no cherry department, but you guys get punchline to the joke of the point I'm trying to make. Is that true? Is that a nice outcome from the usage of your system?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. This is something that historically a lot of technology built for retailers has kind of just turned store level employees into automatons.
Yeah, doers.
Just doers, and it could be really menial, tedious work. At Afresh, we believe things are a bit different. Like, we think at store, you always want to be more efficient, and grocers operate in an incredibly competitive and tight budget environment. But we want to, as much as we can, enable them to create superhuman store associates, enable them to really thrive. And if you think about like the retail experience that you want to have, you don't want the technology to handicap you from doing things that would be awesome for your business. Like every grocer, every merchandiser, or opportunistic would love to say, oh my gosh, the cherries we just got, they taste amazing this year. Like this is going to be bumper. Folks are going to be, and this, it sounds kind of crazy coming outside the industry. It's like, are people going to really go talk about these cherries? But it ends up happening. Like people get the best batch of cherries and they want to come back to the store and get them again. They tell their friends. And so if you get those really good cherries, you actually do want to take action and change them. Historically though, if you're trying to put fully automated systems in place, like to be able to dynamically adjust on the fly, both your merchandising strategy and your operational and replenishment strategy to adjust course, there just was no capability to do that. And so what you'd end up seeing is maybe the regional, smaller or mom and pop grocers where they don't have these systems, they're not encumbered by them. They might have a really talented produce manager or cherry manager and be able to get in there and adjust course. What we're saying is, why can't we have the best of both worlds? Why can't we build a system for fresh that's tailored for this dynamic environment that can be flexible and empower those people to make superhuman decisions and assist them instead of getting in the way? And so that is, I think your question's spot on, and that's like the future that we want to drive to.
Got it. That's cool.
Well, Matt, tell us a little bit about some of the big announcements that we've heard from Afresh as of late. Albertsons, Cub, and others. What can you tell us about them?
Yeah, I'm very excited about a lot of the new retailers that we've announced, including, but not only, Albertsons, Cub, Bashas', Save Mart. So I think we're really excited to be working with these awesome retailers. I think Albertsons, obviously one of the largest grocers in the country or world. We're really excited about that and rolling out chain-wide with them after having demonstrated a lot of value for them with the system. So we believe that we're in this inflection point for us as a company where we've proven that this technology creates absolutely game-changing and transformative results when it comes to, it sounds a little trivial, but like on a base level, there was some question for us when we started the company of, for those in the know about how complicated fresh is, like, can you actually do this?
Can you do it?
To now it's a question of, all right, well, we're scaling this thing. We've proven that it works at scale. And for us as a company, we believe that every grocer needs a fresh operating system. And so we're here to make that happen, to reduce all the food waste, to make the fresh food fresher, increase sales, and really enable the retail industry, the grocery industry, to thrive and win in the 21st century in fresh food.
Yeah, Matt, so I'm gonna pressure on that a little bit. Maybe we'll put the cherry on the top of this interview, pun intended, too. As an entrepreneur too, I'm sure you had this moment too, as you were doing those deployments, and pick your client if you want, or just talk about it more broadly. But what was something you thought going in that as you went into the deployment, you were like, oh crap, I really didn't understand that this was going to work this way. And you guys had to pivot or change something or some, essentially what was a big lesson learned from, one of these deployments that you could share with the audience?
I feel very, 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 very fortunate that for us, we've never pivoted the company or substantially pivoted the technology. We have kind of slowly expanded over time. I'd say, to answer your question, be candid about it. The first experience we had was when we were grad school students, and we thought that we could just give a demand forecast. And I remember we kind of had partnered with an R&D partner. They were willing to give us some data, like, oh, there's some Stanford kids and AI for fresh. Sounds interesting. And we gave them a demand forecast, and they instantly said, like, what the heck do you think we need this for? I don't care about a forecast. I want to make better decisions. So then we was like, okay, well, maybe we'll give the forecast to the store level employee. And then after spending now, literally as an organization, I think we've eclipsed 10,000 hours. We're now well over 100 people in grocery stores. We've come to learn that, again, that full ecosystem, that full system, not just the AI, but also the store level workflow, the tool, all of that needs to come into place to be successful. I'd say that was the big aha moment. And then we realized, oh gosh, like if we really want to build something incredible here, there's a lot to go build. And so, yeah.
That's an awesome answer. That's actually that's why I wanted to ask that question too, because I actually think that's a common mistake. A lot of tech, we talked to a lot of, Ian, we probably talked to 100 tech companies a year in the retail space. And I think that's one of the things I think a lot of them miss, is that there's so much more to a retail technology implementation than just the technology itself. It's how does it go into the workflow of the organization, and what are all the parts around it that have to be built up to make sure it's successful and you get the buy-in in the right way. So it's a great point, Matt. Thanks for telling us that.
Yeah, I think you got to be. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, yeah. And especially now with the pressure that the store staff is under, I think to understand how technology can help become part of the everyday processes to make them simpler instead of, just being another add-on,
it's
another
human game.
Yeah.
I think it's unfortunate. I think history of technology, and I try as much as I can within our culture to never fall guilty of this, is just there's an underappreciation for how complex the grocery industry is and how hardworking it is. I mean, it is a miracle, and there's some great Atlantic articles on this, the miracle of the grocery industry in the US about feeding the whole country with all this food on such slim margins. It's remarkable how hard the work is. And I think there's a deep need for technology providers to be so empathetic with the store level users, but also folks in the information technology parts of the business and engineering, how to do an integration. Given the nature of the industry and how competitive it is, a lot of people are asked to do a lot with very little. And so you always have to be thoughtful about the system design, but also in the partnership model and how you work with retailers to drive towards a successful partnership. Because at the end of the day, there is that fundamental nature of bringing technology into the industry, that it is a partnership. And so that empathy and being really thoughtful about every element of it is something that I think is really important.
Yeah, well, the passion really comes through.
Yeah,
I mean, definitely in this interview, I could feel the passion from, like, that's how we start. That's why I want to start that way in the opening, because I had a feeling in talking to you that was going to be the case. So yeah, I can see that there's been a lifelong dedication to the topic that you're talking about with us today. So, all right, man. Well, that closes us up. Thanks for a great interview. My question for you, we're releasing this during Shop Talk. So for those of you that are maybe out at Shop Talk that want to get in touch with Matt, what's the best way for them to do that, and in general as well?
Yeah, so I would say at Shoptalk specifically, I'm going to put Madison. She's one of our sales folks. She's out there. I'll put her on the spot. Her email is just madison@afresh.com, madison@afresh.com. You can reach out to us at hello@afresh.com, and we have a bunch of forms that you can submit to contact sales or receive a demo on our website that I encourage folks to go to. For me personally, I'm Matt Schwartz on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out. Love to say hello. And we'd love to partner with any retailers that are interested in bringing fresh first technology into their business to be the best in fresh and to eliminate food waste. So I'm super grateful for you having me on the show. It's been a lot of fun, and grateful for anybody who reaches out and is interested in what we're doing.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here first, folks. And again, thanks to Matt, co-founder and CEO of Afresh. Thanks for sitting down with us today. On behalf of Matt and myself, we hope everyone enjoys Shop Talk this week. And as always, be careful out there.